Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something that often gets overlooked in our fast-paced world. We live in a culture that glorifies grand gestures, instant success, and overnight transformations. But let me ask you this, how often does life really work that way? If you've ever looked at a mountain of tasks, dreams, or goals and felt overwhelmed, you're not alone. But here's the secret: those monumental changes we dream of don't happen in a single leap. They happen in the quiet, consistent small steps we take every single day. 1. The power of incremental growth is something many of us overlook, especially in a world that often celebrates quick fixes, overnight success stories, and dramatic transformations. Yet, it's the small, seemingly insignificant actions taken day by day that build the foundation for meaningful change. Our brains are wired for big, bold goals. We love the idea of instant success, but true, sustainable growth is found in the slow and steady process of incremental improvement. It's the compound effect, the idea that small improvements made consistently over time can lead to massive results that drives real, lasting change. One of the reasons incremental growth is so powerful is that it's grounded in reality. Achieving something significant often requires more than a burst of energy or motivation. It requires persistence, discipline, and consistency. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a big goal, but the truth is that most of our greatest accomplishments come from the ability to stay on course, even when the path seems long or tedious. Small steps ensure that the changes we make are sustainable, that we don't burn out, and that we can adjust along the way. Take, for instance, the process of building a habit. Whether it's exercising more, writing every day, or adopting a healthier diet, the initial enthusiasm is often short-lived. People start strong, but over time, the motivation wanes and the habit fades away. However, when you focus on just improving by 1% each day, the pressure to achieve immediate perfection lifts, and it becomes easier to stick with the process. A small step today, even if it seems insignificant, is still progress. And that tiny shift in perspective can make all the difference. One of the remarkable things about incremental growth is that it compounds over time. Small actions may feel like they're not adding up in the moment, but when viewed through the lens of time, the impact is extraordinary. For example, let's say you decide to read just 10 pages of a book each day. That might seem like a trivial commitment after all. It's just a few pages. But over the course of a month, you will have read over 300 pages, and in a year, that could add up to 3,650 pages, nearly 10 books. Those small daily commitments compound, and in the long run, they create a significant impact. The beauty of incremental growth is that it allows us to build momentum. In the beginning, you might not see drastic changes, but as you continue, you'll start to notice how the small efforts begin to add up. The key is to stay consistent, even when the results aren't immediately visible. It's in the gradual process of doing something over time that you start to see the shifts. You may not feel stronger after one workout, but if you keep going, you'll eventually notice improvements in your strength, endurance, and overall fitness. The same applies to any area of life: career, relationships, personal growth. It's all about the small, consistent efforts. This approach is also empowering. When we recognize that big changes don't happen in an instant, but through small, intentional steps, we take the pressure off ourselves to achieve everything at once. We give ourselves permission to start small, to be imperfect, and to enjoy the process. Incremental growth takes the focus off perfection and places it on progress. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. And each step you take builds upon the one before it, eventually leading you to where you want to go. The fear of starting small is something we all encounter, whether we're facing a new goal, a challenging task, or even a personal transformation. It's common to think that unless we begin with a big leap, our efforts won't count or make a real difference. This fear often stems from the desire for perfection and the belief that anything less than a dramatic change is not worth pursuing. We've been conditioned to value instant results, but what we fail to realize is that even the most extraordinary accomplishments begin with small, humble beginnings. One of the biggest barriers to taking that first step is the feeling that small actions don't matter. In a world that celebrates grand gestures and immediate success, it's easy to dismiss small beginnings as irrelevant or insignificant. However, this is a misunderstanding. Small steps taken consistently have the power to create a ripple effect that eventually leads to significant changes. The truth is, the fear of starting small often stems from our desire to control the outcome. We want to see results now, and we want those results to be perfect. But life doesn't work that way, and waiting for the perfect moment to start will only delay your progress. Many of us feel overwhelmed by the scale of our goals and the perceived gap between where we are now and where we want to be. It's easy to get stuck in analysis paralysis, overthinking the process, or doubting our ability to succeed. The fear of failure looms large, especially when we think that if we can't get it right from the very beginning, then we should not try at all. But the reality is that failure is part of the journey, and it's often through the small missteps that we learn the most valuable lessons. Each time we start small, we are giving ourselves the chance to learn, adapt, and grow something that is rarely possible if we try to rush the process or demand perfection from the start. Another aspect of this fear is the perception of effort versus outcome. We often believe that because the initial step seems small, the effort must not be significant, and therefore the outcome won't be either. But in truth, the effort involved in starting small is just as important, if not more so, than the outcome. The act of committing to take a small step day after day builds discipline, consistency, and momentum. And it's through this consistency that we begin to see meaningful results. Over time, the small steps you take begin to accumulate, and suddenly you find that you've made more progress than you initially thought possible. It's also worth mentioning that starting small often leads to a greater sense of accomplishment and confidence. When we aim for a massive goal from the start, we might set ourselves up for failure because the expectation is so high. But starting with a small, achievable goal allows us to build confidence as we check off each milestone. Each small success becomes proof that we are capable, which fuels further progress and helps overcome self-doubt. By focusing on small, manageable actions, we reduce the fear of failure and build a resilient mindset that embraces challenges rather than shrinking from them. The fear of starting small can be reframed. Rather than seeing it as a limitation, we can view it as an opportunity to build a solid foundation for future success. Small steps allow us to experiment, adjust, and grow without the pressure of perfection. It's through these small, imperfect actions that we find our way forward. So the next time you hesitate because your first step feels too small, remember this: that first step is the beginning of something much bigger than you realize. Embrace it, take it, and trust that every small action matters. Building resilience through progress is one of the most powerful benefits of focusing on small, consistent actions. Resilience is often thought of as the ability to bounce back from challenges or setbacks, but in reality, it's something that is cultivated over time through everyday actions and decisions. Resilience is not just about enduring hardship, it's about growing stronger with each step, learning to navigate obstacles, and developing the mental and emotional fortitude to keep moving forward. And one of the most effective ways to build resilience is through incremental progress. When we embark on any kind of journey, whether it's pursuing a career goal, improving our health, or working on personal development, the road is rarely smooth. There will always be moments of doubt, failure, or frustration. The key to resilience lies in how we respond to those moments. If we only focus on large, dramatic goals, it's easy to become discouraged when we encounter a setback, especially if we feel we're not making fast enough progress. But when we focus on small steps, we create a much more manageable and realistic path forward. Each small success, no matter how minor it may seem, serves as a building block for resilience. Take, for example, the process of learning a new skill. If you've ever tried to learn something from scratch, you know that it can feel overwhelming at first. Whether it's learning to play an instrument, taking up a new sport, or mastering a language, the beginning stages are often filled with mistakes and frustrations. But if we break down the process into smaller, more manageable steps, it becomes easier to stay motivated and less likely that we'll give up. The key is not to expect instant mastery, but to celebrate progress, however small. Each time you make a bit of progress, whether it's hitting a new note, running a little farther, or learning a new word, you're building resilience. You're proving to yourself that you can handle challenges and that you can adapt and grow. Small progress helps to build momentum, and momentum is crucial for resilience. When we start seeing even a small amount of improvement, it boosts our confidence and encourages us to keep going. This sense of accomplishment, no matter how minor, creates positive feedback loops that make it easier to take the next step. As momentum builds, the process of moving forward becomes easier and more natural. What once seemed daunting or impossible becomes a series of small steps that we can tackle one at a time. Moreover, focusing on small progress helps us develop a growth mindset. Rather than viewing obstacles as roadblocks, we begin to see them as opportunities for learning and growth. This shift in perspective is essential for building resilience because it allows us to view failure not as something to be avoided, but as a natural part of the learning process. Each small setback becomes a lesson, a chance to reflect and adjust rather than something to give up over. When we develop this mindset, we're more likely to persist even in the face of difficulty. Building resilience through small progress also helps us develop emotional strength. When we consistently take small steps toward our goals, we build a sense of self-efficacy, the belief that we are capable of achieving what we set out to do. This self-belief is crucial for navigating challenges. When things get tough, it's easy to doubt ourselves, but by looking back at the small successes we've achieved, we can remind ourselves that we have the ability to handle adversity and push through. The cumulative effect of small wins over time shapes our ability to stay calm, focused, and optimistic in the face of larger challenges. In summary, resilience is not a trait we're born with, it's a skill we cultivate through consistent effort and progress. Every small step we take toward our goals, no matter how insignificant it may seem at the time, helps to build the emotional and mental strength necessary to face life's challenges. By focusing on the small, incremental wins, we create a foundation for resilience that will carry us through even the toughest times.